proprioception is something that essentially defines your entire awareness. So people should be aware of their body. It's like the signals that you get from the external environment and also from the internal environment. So the mind-muscle connection is like an internal environment signal. The mind-muscle connection is essentially a part of the overall proprioception of the body. When I'm doing like strength training, for example, and when I can really feel fatigue, or like I can feel certain muscles not really performing very well, that is my proprioception. That is my awareness of my body and how things are at the moment. And then if you know exactly what you should fix and like how the body should feel, then you're one step ahead of injuries. Because if you don't, then you're just waiting for things to happen. This is where proprioception is really important, because if you do really know how a certain movement should feel and where you should feel it, then you are going to be ahead of injuries. All right. So this is what happens most of the time when people go to the gym. Like, let's just say they go and do a bench press. Now they've seen someone else do a bench press, and because like this other person has obviously maybe like good genes or whatever, or they've been lucky so far, they haven't been injured doing the bench press in a way that's probably not very correct. Okay, so this person goes and repeats the same, and they get injured, and they go like, why am I getting injured, and why is this guy getting buff from doing exactly the same exercise? Well, that is because obviously people are very different. Some people have a lot of proprioception, and like their awareness as a skill is very developed, like professional athletes. Maybe they don't really think about it too much, but they have the development there. Okay, and that's what's really important here. And that like a lot of people that are not really athletes don't really have that as a skill. So before you actually go and mimic someone, before you start doing some certain exercises, you need to develop proprioception as a skill, or the awareness of the body. And then your gym work is going, or whatever sport you do, is going to explode. Years ago, I was so bad at like feeling my glutes. I couldn't feel them whatsoever. And what really helped me is knowing where my feet should be positioned, and knowing exactly like where my knees should be, where my pelvis should be, how the bar should like travel on my legs when I'm kind of coming up from the deadlift. And obviously, last but not least, knowing what muscles exactly I should be feeling. Because I was thinking like, if I pull enough weight, my glutes are going to grow and work. But that's not the case. That's the thing. Like for some people it works, yes, but not for most of us, right? So for most of us, what we need to do is we need to develop proprioception as a skill primarily. And then once we develop that skill, things are going to be a lot different for us, because we'll be able to feel the exercises. We'll be able to kind of know what to expect from these exercises. And that's what's really important. And that is the difference between movement and exercise. Proprioception will make the difference between movement and exercise, because if you have awareness as a skill, then you can turn any movement into an exercise. This is a elbow flexion movement. If I grab a dumbbell, or if I maybe like intentionally think about squeezing my biceps, I'm turning this into a bicep curl, which is an exercise. The bicep curl isn't a movement. And this is where people need to really understand what I'm trying to say here, is that obviously like when you go into the gym, most people are just moving with weights, but that shouldn't be the case. Movements can be used, for example, in animal flow, or like, animal movements, where you are thinking about muscles, but you are just kind of moving through certain kind of positions. There's a flow to it. Whereas when you go to the gym, there isn't a flow. There isn't a movement like that. There's exercise. You should intentionally think like, I'm lifting like 150 kilos on a deadlift. I should be really tense. I should feel every muscle that I need to feel working. Whereas when you're doing movement training, you're not really tense. It needs to be the opposite. This is where a lot of these things will differ.